journey, knowing God is there, helper, lover of our soul. He's there with us. So we can't be a perfectionist because, one, we're striving against God. So we got to know that being our authentic self, we realize that we need God's help. And when we're being compassionate to others, we realize that God has given us this compassion. And one, we can't be perfectionists because that's why God give us that I believe in situations when we are going through different things, that hardship says, well, and when I'm weak, then I'm strong. Some things, some hardships, because when I'm going through the worst times of my life is when I'm on my knees the most. I stay on my knees, actually. I stay in prayer. And the hardships push me, and not push me, but bring me to my knees. And the testings bring me to my knees. So were it not for grace, were it not for Christ, were it not for grace. So like Paul says, for my strength and power are made perfect, fulfilled, and completed, and show themselves more effective in your weaknesses. Therefore, I will all the more gladly glory in my weaknesses and infirmities, that the strength and power of Christ the Messiah may rest, and yes, may pitch a tent over and dwell upon me. Woo. Were it not for grace. So we're going to go even further. When you think about, have you ever thought about why is it hard to give yourself grace? Have you thought about, do you ever not give yourself grace? Have you not had a hard time forgiving yourself about things? Giving yourself grace starts with addressing perfectionism. Ooh! Remember I said perfection, refusal to accept any standard short of perfection. Giving yourself grace starts with addressing that perfectionism in you. This trait is often defined as the need to be or appear perfect, or the belief that perfection is possible. It is not always a bad thing, but taken too far, perfectionism can be a huge obstacle to happiness. Not only to happiness, but also goes against, your striving. And it goes against, really related to, it strives against God, because you can't receive God's grace if you're trying to be your perfect self, because you're going against grace. You're going against God when you're trying to be perfect in yourself and doing you, trying to do it by yourself, doing it yourself. And if you're doing it yourself, you feel like you don't need God. And that is not good, because it goes against God. And you need God. So let's go to Hebrews 4. You need God. I'm saying this to everybody. Everybody need God. And there's going to become a time in everybody's life where you'll realize how bad you need God. Everybody. Hebrews 4, 15 and 16. But let me see. Yeah, I'm going to go to Hebrews 4. Hebrews 4, 15 and 16. Hebrews 4. Mercy, God. A lot of time, oh gosh. I will only speak for myself. I can't speak for anyone else because I can't. Related to me, I was working as a registered nurse, and I was making lots of money. I worked a lot of overtime, and I was doing it on my own. And I was trying to take care of children and live on my own, working hard, working overtime. And when I kept looking at those checks, that's all I thought about. I knew I needed God, but I just kept working and working and working and working. And the more I worked, the less I had time. But then, the more I worked, I got hurt, and the more pain I was in, I still would work when I was in pain, and I'd take care of kids. I'd work 12 and 16 hours, sometimes 6 and 7 days a week. And I would still work, still go to church, still take care of kids. I was Superwoman. How many know Superwoman met kryptonite? And I was down. And my doctor kept telling me, Dawn, you're going to have to stop it. Something's going to meet you, and you can't keep working like that. And you can't work that type of job. You're going to have to find another type of job, because you can't keep working like that. And I got hurt again. The last time I got hurt, I was down, and it was during the time of the Twin Towers, and I was sitting up in bed, and I looked, and I just laid back in bed, and I said, oh, this is not good. And I remember that was the last time I recall working for maybe a few years, and then went back to work again and attempted to work again until it got bad. And I'll tell you that in this scripture, says in Hebrews 4:15 and 16, I know that God was with me in this time. Because listen to what it says. It says, for we do not have a high priest who is unable to understand and sympathize and have a shared feeling with our weaknesses and infirmities and liabilities to the assault of temptation, but one who has been tempted in every respect as we are, yet without sinning. Let us then fearlessly and confidently and boldly draw near to the throne of grace, the throne of God's unmerited favor to us sinners, that we may receive mercy for our failures and find grace to help in good time for every need, appropriate help, well-timed help, coming just when we need it. I needed it at that time, because I was unable to help myself. I was down for the count. And I will say to anybody else, I was at that perfectionist level. I thought I had it all. I thought I could do it all. But how many know? You cannot do it all. There comes a time you have to, if you will meet yourself coming and going, and it'll be over. So the Lord is saying to us that He understands us, but He says He understands our infirmities. He understands our weaknesses. He sympathizes with us and shares our feelings with our weaknesses, and knows that and knows our liabilities, the assaults of temptation. But one who has been tempted, okay, he understands that. But one who has been tempted in every respect as we are, yet without sinning. Because at that time, I was at the highest peak of my career. But I was really at the high peak of sinning. And he says, and let us then fearlessly and confidently boldly draw near to the throne of grace. As he was telling me, come to the throne of grace. the God's unmerited favor. Because see, he says, how do you give others and yourself grace? I needed to give myself some grace. At that time, I needed grace for myself. And he was telling me, come to the throne of grace. Come boldly. You need to come to the throne of grace, Dawn. And that was the time that I actually did come. I did go. And to admit our affairs and find grace to help in God in the time of every need, appropriate and help, well time help, coming just when we need it. So he knew. God knew. For others, I was trying to do what God could have done for me a long time ago. He knew, but he knew my character. He knew me. He understood me. And it's one thing about God, he knows you. He knows all about us. He knows our personality. He knows all about us. So let's go to John 1:16 and 17. Before we go there, what does God say about giving yourself grace? Before we go to John, let's go to talk about Ephesians 4:23 and 24. Ephesians 4:23, 24. What does God say about giving yourself grace? By applying grace to yourself, you are not accepting, excusing, or justifying your sin, but recognizing that you are a sinner saved by grace. You recognize that you are a sinner saved by grace. And that's what we have to remember. What about others? Well, one, about other people, give other people grace. Wherever you are in your life, I had to recognize this over the weekend. But not only over the weekend, just I had to take a pause myself. I'm going through something myself, but I had to take a pause. I had to take a pause and step back to really do this part of the part of grace. Respect. Respect. You could, on this word that I just spelled out, respect. Respect others. Everybody's not where you're at. And I think sometimes we don't, just because we're going through something, don't mean we get to take it out on other people. And on the part of grace, respectful to others in work and life, throughout life's journey, knowing God is there and helpful, but also be respectful to others. It's so important to allow yourself grace, but also to allow people grace. Give others grace. Respect them. Not only respect them, when you respect them, watch how you talk to them. Listen to them. Don't take over conversations. Don't take it out on them when you're going through. And don't think everybody understands you and what you're going through. And they can't read your mind. They're not in your shoes. And just give them grace, just as God has